Week 2 of the LCS brought more excitement and more banger series, and you should trust me because I watched them all twice. Mostly because I was fever dream sick the first time and couldn't pay attention that well. If you missed it or are new to the LCS or League Esports, this is the place to be. After watching this, you should be caught up on the LCS through week 2. So if you want my breakdown of what happened in week 1, go check out my last video where I did a similar breakdown. With that said, this one should be able to stand alone and get you all caught up in one go if that's what you're looking for. Today, I'm going to give you an update on the current lock-in tournament that we're in, give a breakdown of each game that happened over the weekend, give a preview of next week, and talk about each team and what to watch for moving forward. The LCS has been heating up with several players talking about how there's a lot of parity in the league and that they really believe that any team could make it to Worlds at the end of the year. That's admittedly a long way away, but now the question is, did we see proof of that in this week's games? Oh, and before we jump in, I just want to throw out a little teaser. If you remember this video where I asked all of the LCS teams to tell me why you should support them this year, you'll remember that only 2 teams got back to me. Well, another team has reached out to me almost immediately after that one got posted, actually, and got back to me with why you should support their team. I'll drop that piece in before that team's game breakdown, so you can look forward to that. Let's jump in. First, let's talk about the LCS lock-in tournament. We're in week 2 now, which means the teams with 1-0 records, Cloud9, LYON, Disguised, and FlyQuest, are playing each other. And the teams with 0-1 records, Dignitas, Sentinels, Team Liquid, and Shopify Rebellion, are also playing each other. After this week, the 2 teams with 2-0 records will be officially locked into playoffs, and will face each other in week 3. The 4 teams with 1-1 records will play each other for a chance at playoffs, and the 2-0-2 teams will play each other, with the loser being officially eliminated from playoff contention. 6 teams make playoffs, so the last eliminated team will be decided by a tiebreaker match between the bottom 2 remaining 1-2 teams. So, while there's no threat of elimination this week, teams want to win to earn a little bit of safety moving forward, and those 0-1 teams especially don't want to risk losing and having the threat of elimination in week 3. It's exciting stuff. Let's see how it panned out. Cloud9 and LYON. Cloud9 and LYON are definitely the hot match to watch this week. Most folks are rating these as 2 of the top 3 teams, if not the top 2 teams themselves. Cloud9 had a dominant week 1 against Team Liquid, and now we're waiting to see if they can keep up that dominance. On the other side of the equation, LYON looked similarly good in week 1, though against an assumedly weaker opponent in Dignitas. The story here is that whoever wins this matchup will almost certainly be considered the best team in the league, and a heavy favorite for winning the lock-in tournament as a whole. Game 1 starts incredibly back and forth for Cloud9 and LYON. C9 gets first blood, LYON gets first dragon. Then it's kill for kill, objective for objective, and tower for tower. There are team fights and ganks and big plays in the middle, but the gold lead did not go consistently above 1K until a big team fight around 37 minutes that saw LYON coming out on top. At this point, it was looking like a replay of week 1 where Cloud9 was behind, losing towers, and it looked like they were for sure donezo. Until another big dragon fight around 43 minutes where C9 was able to split LYON apart, win the fight, and take the Dragon Soul. If you're new to League, killing the dragon 4 times grants your team a big power-up called the Dragon Soul. The more you know. C9 would then take Baron Nashor, another big power-up, push down the bot lane, and win the game in a 45-minute banger. Game 2 saw an early fight from Cloud9 go awry, allowing LYON to kill Blabber for first blood in the bot lane. LYON would hold a decent gold lead until 11 minutes where they would have their own fight go awry in the bot lane and allow C9 to take the lead. After that, it kind of looked like a replay of game 1, except in reverse. This time it was Cloud9 going on an absolute tear, taking kill after kill and giving LYON very little breathing room, until Inspired caught out APA around 29 minutes, and LYON was able to win a big team fight, take some objectives, and even up the gold. At this point, I was wondering if LYON would get their revenge, and the question would be answered in a long, drawn-out fight around the Elder Dragon, which is a huge late-game power-up that spawns after Dragon Soul is taken. LYON looked like they had it locked down, but a big pick from APA would allow Sven and Blabber to run over a very tense team fight, ace LYON, walk down the mid lane, and pick up another 2-0 win. It seriously feels like oops all bangers for Cloud9 games this year. Sentinels and Dignitas. Sentinels and Dignitas both had tumultuous weeks last week, with Sentinels losing in Game 3 against Disguised after winning Game 1 in a 50-plus minute slugfest. Dignitas lost 0-2 last week, but most folks are granting them some grace because they had 2 emergency subs in, as well as their coach. They literally had their general manager on stage drafting for them last week. This week, they've got their players back and at least an assistant coach on stage, but you can safely bet that they haven't had a ton of practice with their full squad. So Sentinels are trying to show up and prove themselves here, while Dignitas is kind of building the car while they're driving. Before we jump into the games here, I'm stoked to say that Dignitas is the latest team to get back to me and pitch me their team. Their manager Jonathan reached out nearly immediately and explained that my email got buried in the wrong inbox, which for the record, I knew was very likely to happen. That is not a them problem. That's a me problem. And that he'd love to tell me more about Dig. I think it's important to emphasize that he got back to me very quickly and that this pitch is coming in the week 2 video only because he had a very busy week 1 because he was that general manager that was drafting on stage for Dignitas. Any delays past that were on me, so please don't count those delays against Dig if you're still trying to decide on a team to support. Anyway, here's what Jonathan had to say about why you should support Dignitas. I would say the biggest reason to cheer for Dig is not the underdog nature of a team like Dig, but the potential for us to be an underdog that can scale throughout the year and perform to really reward your fandom. We know our players have what it takes to win, but we also have a big amount of belief in the support staff around our team to allow for that growth to happen within our team. It is very rare in the LCS to have an organization like Dig that is able to assemble a group of players that are excited to play together and confident that they can perform better as a group than they could with others. And even more so rare for those players to include 3 former LCS champions. I know there was a certain kind of fandom in the old LCS era of CLG and TSM of just following a team through all the ups and downs, all the obstacles and hurdles, and ultimately, I really believe we've been able to capture that kind of energy in our team. And all we really need to do is prove that we're deserving of fans to show us that level of faith and believe in what we're doing. Finally, we're trying our best to not just be available for media, but to actively seek it out, like we're doing now, reaching out to GupasMegerg. To tell our story, give insights to our team and players, and ultimately just be visible enough that hopefully a handful of folks feel like joining us on this crazy adventure through the return to the LCS. Please show Dig some love down in the comments. I appreciate Jonathan so much for reaching out to me, and I am so stoked to see them doing so much work with their socials this year. Again, I'm just really stoked the teams would reach out to me at all, and also that they would pursue me and reach back out to me after missing my initial email. That shows some real class. So, with all of that said, let's jump into the games. Game 1 started pretty slow, with a few trade kills and an edge going over to Dignitas early. Then, around 17 minutes, Sentinels would take the Dragon, then turn around and fight Dignitas, picking up 3 kills and a gold lead that they would use to win more fights, take more uncontested objectives, and just look very in control. This game also featured a long drawn-out fight around 24 minutes where Dig looked like they might bring it back, but in the end, Sentinels would take Baron, amass a 13k gold lead, and push down the Nexus for the win in Game 1. Game 2 starts out really fun as Dig's mid laner Palafox flashed in to get first blood onto Darkwings. Then, immediately after, Sentinels Hambach would steal Dragon from Dig and pick up a kill after. Then there would just be concurrent fights in top lane and mid as it seemed like everyone wanted in on the action. This all happened within like 2 minutes of each other, and it made for an explosive early game. Things stayed even for a bit, but would eventually swing to Sentinels' advantage after a fight at 17 minutes, where Sen kind of just got everything they wanted. They'd win a few more fights, amass a 15k gold lead this time, and walk it in for a 2-0 victory on the week, and their first match win in the LCS. FlyQuest and Disguised. As mentioned before, Disguised went to 3 games with Sentinels last week, surprising a lot of people with their win. They're a brand new roster with a lot of young talent, so no one was quite sure how they'd do. With that said, their opponents here are FlyQuest, the squad with the youngest talent in the league. In fact, I did the math, and the average age of players in this match is just over 21, a fact that made my back hurt. We had questions about FlyQuest going into the split, but their week 1 performance performance was convincing, and a lot of folks are now seeing them as real contenders. Disguise had a less convincing week 1, but still looked pretty good overall. Oh, also, please note that Disguise is still running a sub in the jungle, Kisno. This is expected to be his last week, as their intended starter Kryra has had his visa approved and is literally just waiting on the paperwork in the mail. DSG has apparently been practicing exclusively with Kryra to prepare for his return, so keep that in mind as we go through the games. Game 1 was, how do I say this kindly, an absolute stomp. FlyQuest came in hot, snagging the first 2 kills and first 2 dragons, and the Rift Herald. He's a giant mutant rideable crab, if you weren't aware. League is a fun game. Then DSG would clap back at 17 minutes with a kill onto substitute jungler and winner of my heart these last 2 weeks, Kisno. And that's all they'd get. Seriously, that would end up being the only kill that DSG would get for all of game 1. Meanwhile, Fly would play super aggressively, take everything that wasn't nailed down, and end the game at 28 minutes with a 15-1 scoreline. Sheesh! Now, if you thought this would be a boring series, fret not. After a slow early game, DSG claims first blood in game 2 with a jungle invasion play and a good heads-up ultimate teleport from their mid laner, Call Me. They'd then send 3 top at almost 15 minutes to double their kill count from the last game. That's growth. FlyQuest would clap back with some good team play around Rift Herald, not getting the objective, but winning the fight after to even up the score. Fly would ace DSG at 17 minutes and looked like they were going to run away with it, but DSG would just not give up, even after a handful of very bloody fights. The game would be blown wide open, though, after a super exciting fight around Baron at 28 minutes that saw DSG steal the Baron away from Fly, win the resulting fight, and secure a gold lead for themselves. DSG would knock down everything they could, balloon their gold lead, win a fight in FlyQuest base, and take us to Game 3. Game 3 starts with first blood going to DSG and then quickly spirals into fighting, and more fighting. Both teams played this one pretty aggressively in the early game, especially DSG's mid laner Call Me, who just seemed to be all over the map, making plays everywhere. Fly maintained an early gold lead, but the game felt very close until 20 minutes, when Quad, FlyQuest mid laner, ran over a team fight and Fly picked up an ace. This led to a Baron fight where Griffin snagged a quadra kill, and that was all she wrote. The game dragged out to 30 minutes, but FlyQuest was pretty clinical in winning fights, knocking down towers, and eventually taking the series 2-1. Shopify Rebellion and Team Liquid. Last week I listed Shopify and TL as one of my games to watch, specifically because I thought they both underperformed a little bit, and I was excited to see which team could make quick improvements and come out on top. Team Liquid faced a dominant-looking Cloud9, and they had a great start to Game 1 last week before they fumbled the ball and ended up losing. Shopify faced a FlyQuest that also looked great out of the gate, even if we now know that there are some weaknesses in their armor. In a way, these were the 2 most surprising teams to be on the 0-1 side of the bracket, and therefore, the 2 with the most to prove. Game 1's action starts on a bit of a fumble play from Team Liquid. They try to pull off a 3-man dive onto Shopify's bot lane, and B-Voy, SR's ADC, was able to survive with a sliver of health and get first blood after Core JJ took 1 too many turret shots. Things would go kill for kill and stay very close until 22 minutes, when TL took a fight in Shopify's jungle and walked out with 3 kills for basically free, which they then turned into a Baron take. Honestly, things were pretty business as usual until 28 minutes when a fight kind of surprisingly broke out and TL aced Shopify before I really even knew what was happening. LYON ended up inside the enemy base, burned down most of SR, and the rest of TL cleaned it up. They'd use that ace to push down the Nexus and take Game 1. Game 2 starts with violence from TL. They did a 3-man gank into mid lane to kill Zinni for first blood and then just kept throwing hands. 3 minutes later, they had 4 kills, and while SR was able to snag 1 back, it all led to Core JJ getting caught at 13:30, and by that I mean he was able to land a 4-man Bard ult that turned into a 4-man Orianna ult that left 3 dead on the side of Shopify. Core really said, "Call an ambulance, but not for me," and dooted his way out of there. This left Quid wildly strong on the Orianna, and TL were allowed to just make bold play after bold play as they built up a 10k gold lead by 22 minutes, and Quid was just deleting people. SR would end up getting a shutdown kill onto Quid for the moral victory, but in the end it wouldn't matter, as TL would wrap things up for a quick 2-0 win. So with all of that covered, let's take a look at our matchups for week 3, which is where things really get interesting in this tournament. As a reminder, week 3 is the final week of the Swiss stage, and at the end of next week, one team will be 3-0 and one team will be 0-3. The 3-0 team will be first seed in the playoff stage and get to pick their opponent for the first week, while the 0-3 team will be eliminated. Of course, only 6 teams qualify to playoffs, so we'll need to eliminate one more. At this point, there will be 3 teams that are 1 and 2. The one with the best game record, meaning they won the most and lost the fewest individual games, not just best of 3 matches, will qualify to playoffs. And the remaining 2 teams will play a tiebreaker match, with the loser being eliminated and the winner moving on. That means we get bonus league next week. Woo! So here are our matches for next week. It's pretty obvious to me that the big games to watch are on Sunday. Cloud9 FlyQuest as the 2-0 matchup is all about who's the best, while Dignitas Shopify is all about who's going home immediately. But don't sell short the 1-1 games on Saturday. TL, Sentinels, DSG, and LYON will all be looking to win their games, or at least take them to 3 games, because the losers of those games risk having to come back on Sunday to play that tiebreaker match at the end of the day. I think every game here is going to be exciting to watch, and I'm literally so thrilled to say that. I know I tend to be pretty enthusiastic, but LCS is really delivering for me this year, and I could not be more stoked. So, knowing that the first 2 weeks of LCS have been wildly fun to watch so far, let's take a look ahead. Here's what I think would be good to look out for each team in week 3. First up is C9. They are the only team in the LCS that are currently undefeated, with 2 2-0s over Team Liquid and LYON. Part of what makes their current run so fun to watch is that they have not been thrown softball opponents. Their first 2 opponents have also been their biggest projected competition for first place this split. And so of course it's perfect that they'll be facing off against the next strongest looking team in FlyQuest. Can they keep it up? We'll find out. On the flip side, Dignitas are sitting at the bottom of the table without a win to their name. Yes, they had subs for week 1, and yes, they've probably not had much practice time with their starters, but the lock-in tournament is short, and they don't have much time to turn on the afterburners and save themselves from being knocked out. With that said, if they can avoid elimination in week 3, they'll have one heck of a story, and they might just be able to make some magic happen in playoffs. But that is a big if. DSG are sitting in the middle of the table at 1-1, and even in their loss, they showed some real promise by pulling a game off of a FlyQuest that has looked good otherwise. With that said, they also lost really hard in game 1, but I actually kind of think that's a good thing. It takes a strong mental to get blasted 15-1 in game 1 and come back to win game 2. History tells us that a strong mental is required to do anything of note in this game, so hopefully that spells a bright future for Disguised. FlyQuest has looked good overall, but also showed some weaknesses this week in that game 2 loss to DSG. We expected some of that since they're a young roster that's newly formed, but the question will be if that's a crack they can seal up quickly or if it will eventually lead them to crumble. Either way, FlyQuest is really fun to watch, and it'll be fun to see them test their mettle against a strong C9 in week 3. LYON lost this week, but again, they may be suffering from the same issue as TL in week 1, which is that it's hard to judge your strength against the field when you're playing what may be the best team in the league. Week 3 should be a pretty good litmus test for LYON, and if they can show dominance here, they'll likely secure a top spot in the LCS power rankings for the split. Sentinels are still a bit of a hard read so far, as they took Disguise to game 3 and lost in week 1, but won 2-0 against a struggling Dignitas this week. It's not exactly easy to judge their power based off games against other teams that are also question marks. Regardless, they should have a bit of a test against TL in week 3, and if they can win it, they'll really be making a case for themselves. We know they have potential, they just have to be able to put it out there on stage. Shopify has some things to prove in week 3. Most folks were projecting them decently high up in the rankings this year, and seeing them playing to avoid elimination in week 3 is a bit of a shocker. A win here would go a long way, both for their fan stonks and for their morale. They've got to be feeling some nerves going into their match with Dig, but these players have faced challenges together before and should hopefully not succumb to the fear of elimination. And that brings us to Team Liquid. We had questions about them after their week 1 losses to Cloud9, but they came back strong this week and really looked like the team they were hyped up to be. I think most folks are expecting them to take the win in week 3, but I think they also know that they can't go autopilot against Sentinels and will still have to put the work in. This should be a good opportunity for TL to show that week 1 was just an unlucky draw and they belong at the top with the others. That's all I've got this week. Week 3 of LCS starts at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Saturday and Sunday, and yes, the Cloud9 FlyQuest series is during the Super Bowl. Let me know if you'll still be watching, and let me know who you're rooting for this week. If you like this or anything else that I've made, you know what to do. And I really do feel the need to stress how much I appreciate those of you who have jumped on my little LCS hype bandwagon. You rock, and I hope you know that I read and appreciate every single comment, so thank you. I'll see you next week, and before I go, I'll just throw this out there. If you ever want to chat LCS, League, or other video games, you can find me on Twitch as well. I stream a few days a week, and every once in a while, I even get brave enough to play or shoutcast a few games of League. Though I will warn you up front, I'm not good at actually playing League of Legends. I'm a fan to the core. But seriously, I'd love to have you there, and I hope that if you do stop by, you let me know that this is where you found me. Thanks for everything. I'll see you in the next one. Have a good week. Bye!